Hi, my name is Adrie and I welcome you to this introductory course to computer programming. In this introductory course, I will introduce you to computational thinking and I will give you everything you need to get started programming in Python. This course will cover these 23 topics listed on the right, and I have went ahead and divided them into 8 weeks of running. So without further hesitation, I will quickly get started with the week 1 content. In the first week, our goals are to understand the basics of computers and programming, to install Python and to set up the integrated development environment, to write a Hello World program, to learn about commenting, learning about variables and data types, and conducting basic operations. And there's going to be a bonus point, which is going to be taking input from users. After taking this week's 1 content, you should be able to perform complex operations which you would not be able to do in your normal scientific calculators. Three of the most important parts of a computer are the CPU, the RAM, and the disk. CPU is like the brain of the computer and it handles all the computation. RAM, as the name says, it's the memory of the computer and it's a random memory. So when you run your program and your program stores some data, your computer will temporarily store those data in the memory so that it can access them quickly to do computation using CPU. And if you need to save data for long-term storage, then the disk is what you want to be writing on. So if you have your laptop, you will notice that your CPU will be something like Intel i3 or i5, and your RAM will be somewhere written like 4 gigabytes RAM or 8 or something else, and your disk will often be HDD or SSD. Notice that SSD disks are much faster than the traditional HDD disks. If you were conducting a small operation, a small task here, and you were like reading numbers from a paper and using a calculator to do some calculations on those numbers and then writing your answers to a paper, you would basically be using what is like these three parts of the computer. You would read the numbers from the book. In this case, the book is behaving almost as the disk because it stores so many content for a long time. And you would like read two numbers, temporarily remember them in your memory, and then use your calculator to compute maybe the sum, and then store the output on your paper, which is the disk. So that would be resembling this process. Notice that everything which is stored in RAM is going to be erased once you turn off your computer. So the RAM does not store content for long term. The reason why we need both RAM and disk is because it's much faster to read data from the memory and to write in memory than to read from disk. That is why when your program is going to run, it will store the basic things it needs in memory so that it can use them quickly, and once you want to store data for a long time, you will write on disk. Disks are much less expensive compared to RAM. Why do we use computers anyway? Why not just do everything with our brains? Computers are very fast at performing tasks and they are much less prone to making errors compared to humans. Hence, they are consistent, and that is why we need computers. How do we get computers to do our works? It turns out we humans communicate using natural languages like English, French, Korean, Kinyarwanda, and so on. Computers, on the other hand, can only understand what is known as machine code or binary code, which is zeros and ones. Because we cannot speak the machine language and computers cannot understand our natural language, that is why we need something in between to bridge the gap, and that is the idea of a programming language. A programming language is designed in such a way that we can write the instructions to the computer, and then it will convert the instructions to the format understandable by the computer, and the computer will be able to understand what we want it to do. So that's the idea of the programming language. And that is where Python comes in, and in this course we will be writing our programs in Python. There are so many programming languages out there, and it's a very common mistake among programmers to spend too much time researching the best language to run without realizing that the programming concepts in programming languages are the same. As long as you master one programming language, you will have much easier time running the next one. So it really doesn't matter too much which programming language you choose to go first. Learn it well, run the fundamentals, do what you can with it. If you ever want to run another language because your task requires it or just for the fun of it, you will have much easier times doing it. In this course we'll be using Python, and one of the reasons we'll be using it is because it's very easy to run. It has English-like syntax, and we write few lines of code and get much done. I have written a Python code here which prints a hello world text on the screen, and I have written the same exact code in Java. As you can see, it's much nicer and cleaner and easier in Python compared to Java. Python has so many features. It is a general purpose programming language, which means it can be used in so many areas, including web development, developing GUI applications, education, networking, database, security, so many others. And you can always type in Google Python applications, and you will be surprised at how many things you can do with Python. Python is being chosen by many companies today. These are some of the famous companies that have used or are still using Python in their core products. To install Python, we go to the website www.python.org, and we go to downloads, and there you select your operating system, and then you will be redirected to a page which contains the installation files. In this example, I was working on a Windows, and so I choose to download an executable installer, and once you download it, you can run it like normal programs, and when you run it, make sure to check the box which says add Python to path. I highly recommend that you install the latest version of Python, but you should be able to follow this course as long as you are using any Python free version. So if it's 3.8, 3.7, 6.5, there should be no visible differences across those versions. After you install Python, you should see a message like this which says setup was successful, and if you run into issues, feel free to let me know in the comment section so that I can help you. To test your Python installation, there are two ways you can do it. If you're on Windows and you don't like to use the command line, you can simply click Start on your machine, and you should see new recently installed applications here, among which you will see the Python idle, which we'll be using in this course. If you'd like to play with the command line, click the Windows key on your machine, and then type CMD and hit enter, and it should open the command prompt. In this command prompt, you can type the word Python and click enter, and it should automatically start the Python interpreter. You can do a simple test like a number plus a number and hit enter, and if your Python is correctly installed, you will get the answer. So you will know your Python is working. If you meet an error at this point, again check whether you have installed the Python correctly, and let me know in the comment section if something went wrong. Now in this course we'll be using the Python idle, which is integrated development environment. To get it, click start again, and then type idle, and it should open looking something like this. Now for the sake of comfort, I like to pin it to start so that you can always access it from start. So if I pin it from start, then it will be appearing on here on the page. For the sake of configuration, I recommend that you open your idle. I will quickly show you. So if I type idle, I should be able to get the Python idle opened, and it will open looking like this. When you open the first time, it will not open like this. To get it to open like this, which is much more nicer, go to options. I will show you again. Go to options, configure ID, choose the size you wish. I recommend 12 and leave the indentation unchanged. On highlights, you can choose your default theme. If you like the dark theme, then go ahead and choose this one. You will have your code highlighted in this manner, and I like this, but for this course I will be using the right theme, so I will stick with the idle classic. For keys, don't do nothing unless you are sure what you are doing here. And for general, this is important. At startup, to be able to get your idle to open in the same format as mine here, you need to check this box, open edit window. By default, your Python will be here, open shell window. And if it's here, it will not open an edit window like this, it will open the shell window, which will be different. So check this box, set how much width and height you want it to open with, and then you can click apply, and you will be good to go. Writing our first Hello World program. So in Python, writing our first Hello World program is as easy as typing the word hello, the word print. We use the keyword print, parentheses, open and close, and then we use the double quotes, and inside the double quotes we put in whatever we want to print, which in this case is hello world. Then you can click on run. You will be prompted to save the file, save it to the location you want, and then it will run. I will quickly show you this process. So I open idle. You see it has opened in the shell. I will again do that configuration which I mentioned a while ago. Set it to open edit window, apply, okay. The next time I open it, should open the edit shell, edit window. Now, to write the hello world program in Python, we simply use the keyword print, open parentheses, close. Inside here, we write the double quotation marks, and inside these double quotation marks, we write whichever text we want to display on screen, which in this case is hello world. And to run, I click run, and run mode. Notice that I could do this using F5 shortcut. So I'm prompted to save my file. I will click OK, and I choose where I want to save it. I want to save it on desktop, inside code class. There is another file there, so I will just save it on desktop. I call it some name, and then I click save. I also have the start name. So the moment I save, my program is now run. So as you can see, it's executed automatically. And if I make change to my program, I write hello again. Now I can run it again, and it's saved, and you see the change is saved. I could also run it by clicking Ctrl S, which is to save, followed by F5, which is to run, and it will run easily. Okay, now we have written our first program. Notice that print was a keyword, and we did open and close parentheses, and we enclosed the text in the quotation marks. You notice that print was highlighted in a different color, which means the word print holds a special meaning to Python. Basically, it is a keyword we use if we want to display something on the screen. It's called a function, and we will see what a function is in our future classes. For now, just remember, if you want to display something on the screen, use the print keyword and then use open and close parentheses and put inside what you want to display on screen. Python reads our program line by line. If I write 3 print statements, Python will print them in order from the first one to the second and the third. Now, you may ask your question, what if there is an error in line number 1? Does Python skip it and interpret the remaining lines, or does it stop and ask me to fix the error before executing the next lines? As you can see in this example, I wrote 3 lines of code and there is an error, and Python tells me that there is an invalid syntax. And this P informs me that the error is somewhere before this place, so this line was not executed. And if you look carefully, you will see that I have forgotten to close my parentheses here, and that's why the error was born. So as you can see, Python reads the first line and there was an error, and because of the error, Python could not move on to the next lines. This can be very important. It's important that if one line is not executed, we should get a message. We should not move on and continue doing the work as if nothing happened. So Python reads our codes line by line. And I forgot to mention something. When we get an error message like this, it's always a good idea to read the message and understand it, as opposed to getting frustrated. So I recommend that you make this promise that when Python sends me an error message, I will not get frustrated. Instead, I will read the error message and try to understand what my friend Python is telling me. Commenting. Suppose you were writing a complex program and it was going to be used by other programmers in the future. You would want a way to communicate with them, telling them what your program does. But the problem is, if you just type in some text in any careless manner, then it's going to cause some errors as Python reads your program. Instead, what you can do is to use this sign, the comments, and then tell Python that everything which follows this sign is a comment. Ignore this comment and don't read it as you interpret my program. So we use this sign to tell Python that this is a one-line comment, ignore this whole line, and we use the triple quotation marks for multiple line comments. Everything inside the triple quotation marks will be skipped as comments. Variables help us to store data in computer memory. When I want to store data in the computer memory, I can type name, for example, equal Bob, age equal 9. This means when Python reads this program, it will store the word name, the word Bob in memory, and we saw what memory is, it's the RAM, in a way that in the future, if I want to access it, I can access it by simply using name. Name will point to this data which I stored in memory, which is an object, but you will see in the future what is an object. So for now, remember, when we want to declare variables in Python, all we have to do is type the name of variable. Maybe I want to save name, equal sign, and then you store it to what you want to be. So I want, for example, to store name, which is Adrien, and I want to store age, which is maybe 100 years old. So in the future, if I print name, Python should go back and remember that my name was Adrien. And let's check to see if that is indeed the case. And if, as you can see, it printed error again, and then it's received this name under the variable name, and it stored my age. I will now check if it remembers my age. So I will print both the name and the age. Notice that we can do this in Python by using a comma. Now I will check, and as you can see, it printed both my name and my age. Now notice that as Python reads this program, it reaches this line and store this data in memory. This one store this in memory, and when I type name here, it's looked in memory, and this name was already stored in memory. If on the other hand, I try to access my height, which I have not saved in memory, Python should give me a very friendly error which tells me the error which I have. Name height is not defined, and basically Python is telling me you are asking me to give you height, but you haven't told me what height is. And that is why I have to come here and define my height, which is maybe 5 meters tall, which is not practical, but which is not the truth, but it's an example. So now if I save, Python now knows my height and it will not give me an error message. This is how we declare variables in Python, and you always want to name your variables using the letters, but you could also use an underscore. You do not want to start your variable names with numbers. No, do you want to make it just numbers? So a valid variable name begins with letters, or at least an underscore. Another thing to remember while naming variables is that variables should be one word. If you want to use two words, then you separate them using an underscore. For example, if I want a variable called my name, instead of storing it like this, I will join these two words using an underscore. Python will read this as one word, and you can check this in your interpreter and see if it works the same way, and that's how we declare variables in Python. Now the next topic is the rules for naming, and I encourage you to pause this slide and read. So this is basically what I just talked about, and besides from that, there are other keywords which we do not want to use when writing our Python variable names. Those include the reserved keywords. Remember, we saw that print is a specific keyword in Python which tells Python that we want to display something on the screen. So we do not want to use a variable called print because that would confuse Python. So these keywords will come as we go through the course, and simply it's always a good practice to name your variables a name which relates to what they does, so that you can remember as you read your program, you know each variable and what it stores. To change the value of a variable, you can simply reassign it. For example, name equal to Bob. If I print name, I will get Bob. If I come here and say now name equal to my name, the next time I print name, it will not print Bob, but it will print my name. That means the value of name in memory has been changed to my name. And this is very comfortable to do in Python compared to other languages which are statically typed. Data types tell us what kind of data a value can have. Notice that when we were creating our variables, we use the name of variable equal sign, and then we assign the certain value to this variable. So the value we assign to our variable can either be integers. Integers mean a number without decimal points, and it can be positive or negative number. For example, age, it's not common that someone will say my age is 9.5 years old. They will just say 9. That's a good use case for integers. Floats has decimal places. For example, the height, you can add decimal places. Booleans are true and false, and in the next slide I will talk more about the Booleans. Strings, you can think of strings as the words or text, whatever is easier for you to remember, but I like to think of it as text. So Booleans are always enclosed in quotes. That's what tells Python that this is a Boolean. You have to enclose it in quotes. If I did not enclose it in quotes, Python will see this as a variable name, not as a string. So always remember to enclose your string in quotation marks. List, we will see them in our next classes, is basically where you want to store data which is related, and you basically use a list. A good example would be a situation where, for example, I want to store my kids' names, and it makes more sense to create a list which I create by opening this particular bracket, and then inside this brackets I will be using storing my data separated by a comma, and I can put here integers, booleans, floats, strings, other ways to reset as we learn about this. Same goes for tuples, we will learn about them, the sets, and dictionary is like a normal dictionary. If you were starting running and maybe writing a dictionary for a language, you would want to store a key and a value. A key would be a keyword you want to store, and the value would be the meaning of that keyword, which is basically what a dictionary is. Basic operations in Python includes addition, subtraction, multiplication, division with decimal places, for division, which gets rid of decimals, power, and the modulus operation. Addition is the normal operation. When I write x plus y, I will get the answer of this addition operation. Subtraction is normal as well. Or multiplication, we use this star sign. And division with decimal, if decimals, we use the normal backward linear bar. And notice that if I take x over y, I will get 2.5. But if I take x for division y, I will get just 2. So the for division gets rid of decimal places. Notice that this is different from rounding. Rounding, we could have a situation where we round to 3, but this will simply get rid of decimals. Double stars means power, so 5 power 2 is 25. The modulus operator is less common, but it's very useful. So what it does is it tells you what is the remainder of a division operation. For example, if I take x modulus 2, I'm asking my computer what is the remainder of 5 divided by 2. So 5 divided by 2 gives me 2, but the remainder is 1. So this operation of x modulus y will return 1. Operations in Python follow the normal body mass rules. So brackets take higher priority. So if you want to compute very complex operations, you can close them in brackets to tell Python which order do you want to run your operations in. The Boolean operators return true or false. Double equal signs, we use it to say that two things are equal. Less than is as its name goes, greater than the same. Now for exclamation mark followed by equal sign, it means not equal to, and the less than sign followed by equal, it means less than or equal, and the reverse is true for greater than or equal. When I say a is equal to 2, b is equal to 2, and I say print a is equal to b, I'm asking my computer, is the value of a equal to b? Notice that this question is a true or false question. That is why the output of this operation will be what we call a Boolean value. In this case, because they are the same, the Python will print out true, which means this was a true statement. If the value of b was like 5 and I run a equal to b, then it will be a false output. As a bonus point, we talk about the input. Input is a function which allows us to take input from the user, and the way we do it in Python is to type the keyword input and then open and close brackets, and inside we write the text, which is the message you want to give to the user, and then we save the inputs to a variable. So hit a quick pause and see if you can figure out how this works, and if you don't understand it, don't worry, because we cover this in the next class. Thank you so much for following this week's one content, and as an exercise, try to see if you can write a small Python code which can solve this business problem. And if you want to be in touch, you can email me, but I recommend more that you type in the comment section, and I will help you with your exercise. So try this, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much.